In the Kuzari, we are in section 48, 49, and 50. So, the king and the rabbi are discussing the mitzvot and how the mitzvot are supposed to create a connection for us with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. And the king was under the impression that the mitzvot are simply the mitzvot of being good, do chesed, be a good human being. And you will hear people out there say, you know what it means to be a Jew? It means just be a good person. Well, being a good person doesn't mean you need to keep Shabbos. Being a good person doesn't mean you need to be circumcised. Being a good person doesn't mean that you have to eat matzah on Pesach. Being a good person doesn't imply most of the mitzvot that we follow. It doesn't say that being a good person is to pray 3 times a day. Being a good person doesn't imply that you have to wear tzitzis. And so Rabbi Yehuda Levi, the rabbi, explains to the king that it's not simply the rational commandments, but we also have commandments that are given to us specifically that are not necessarily mitzvot that we would come up ourselves. There are some mitzvot that if we thought about, if we sat around and figured out how to create a good society, we could figure it out. We would come up that we shouldn't murder. That's something that we can come up with. We will come up with that we shouldn't lie. Right? That's probably people know that you shouldn't lie. Or that you shouldn't covet your neighbor's wife or her house or the house or property. Or that you shouldn't take false witness. Certain things are given. Those are rational concepts. The question is believing in one God rational or not? So, in the eyes of most of the world prior to modernity, it was irrational to believe that the world came out of chance. It just seems irrational. And it was rational to assume that there is a creator. The question was, what's the relation between that creator and the physical world? Is the world created? Is the world not created? There were different views. But for the most part, most humanity believed there is God. Would most people believe today that there is God? I'm not so sure. And so, the rabbi explains to the king that it takes a lot more than just the rational commandments to achieve a state of holiness where God is connected to you. And he says, if you look at what the Kadosh Baruch Hu is saying, you cannot say that a Jew should simply do the following: asot mishpat ve'avad chesed. Just make sure that you create justice and do chesed, acts of loving kindness. He says, you think that that's it, and then not doing milah, which is bris, Shabbos, Pesach, and other, you think you're going to achieve shleimus, perfection? There's a very large category of commandments that we have that deal with kosher food. Right? We don't eat certain animals. And the animals that we do eat have to be killed in a certain manner. Right? Killing of animals is not pretty, but we have to do it in the most ethical way that we can, which is slaughter. And the slaughtering after that, there are requirements to drain the blood. You have to salt the meat. There's all these processes. There's lots and lots of rules in kashrus. Those things are not rational. That is, if you ask somebody, okay, if you want to be an ethical person, what should you eat? What about cheese and meat? And I go, what? What does that have to do with anything? What does that have to do with anything? They might say that to be ethical, you have to be vegan. Chas v'shalom. God forbid. They might say you have to be vegetarian, which we would say, Shabbos with no cholent? Vegetarian cholent? What are we, girls? Right? I mean, Shabbos, I think Shabbos, to have chopped liver. I know all the vegetarians out there are watching like, oh my God. Listen, the only reason we kill the animals is because they're eating your plants. They're doing you a favor. I just think it's more cruel to eat only vegetables than meat. Because a cow can at least put up a fight. What can a tomato do? Just... So, Rabbi Yehuda Levi has a point. Our goal is shleimus, perfection, so we can connect to Hashem. And this connection to Hashem, this perfection, is only going to be achieved through keeping all of the mitzvot, not just the rational ones. The rational ones are kind of easy. How many of you wake up in the morning thinking, I'm going to murder somebody today? Hope not. You're in the wrong program. This is JLE Connect, man.
Gotta go there. That person would need it the most.
That's bad. You're out. The same thing with stealing. That is, most people don't have that impulse. Some people do, unfortunately, therefore we need to have prisons and the rest of all of the stuff that we have in Western society. But so the king says, I guess it does make sense what you're saying, but the philosophers say that a person can become pious without dealing with how to come close to Hashem. The philosophers, which we're talking about now, he's talking about Plato and Aristotle, most of it, did talk about how to become closer to perfection, how to become an ethical and moral being. And they weren't addressing the concept of holiness, which is how we come closer and closer to Hashem. But he says, now, according to Judaism or Christianity or other religions or religions that people come up with, it says usually people try to come up with a religion that is similar to who they are. And therefore, it's a big problem because Judaism is not like that. We would never come up with eating a box of crackers in the spring. Just think about it. We would never think about putting on tefillin if it wasn't from the Torah. Because how would anybody come up with that? Nobody would ever come up with circumcision. Just imagine you're standing there looking like, I got an idea. Got an idea. No, who's going to come up with that? So says the Rabbi Yehuda Levi, the rabbi, responded, says the Torah Elokit does not want us to serve God through ascetic practices. That is withholding physical pleasures. That is not how we serve Hashem. It's not about withholding food, withholding drinks, withholding sleep. And when you do lay down, you lay on a bed of nails. That's not what we do. That's not Judaism. That's not the point. The Torah teaches us the right measure to get the maximum of all of the abilities of the nefesh and the guf. That is, we need to be a balanced creature. And the balance requires a balance between the physical needs, the emotional needs, and the spiritual needs. And the Torah's commandments are to get us to become in line, that all of those three are aligned. The body requires food. Okay. But you also need to control what you put in your mouth. And so therefore we have the laws of kashrut. Eat these and don't eat these. You have to have intimacy. Okay. That's a human need. And intimacy is not only for the physical act, but also for the emotional aspect of it. And so therefore, there are requirements, both on the emotional side and also on the physical side. This is not that kind of class. You're not getting details. And so, the more you allow the body to exert control over your being, the weaker your brain becomes. Your ability to think weakens and weakens and weakens. For example, I'll give you a very simple example. There are people who like to enjoy smoking marijuana to a point that it becomes something called taiva, a desire. Well, that desire has a consequence. It affects your brain's ability to think straight. You fulfill what the body's telling you. Hey, we need to relax. Then mitzad sheni, then your ability to think straight is affected. Same thing with alcohol. The body might say, we need us to have a good time, to relax, but then your judgment is impaired. The Torah requires you to develop and control a balance between these different aspects of who you are. Arrogance and humility. There needs to be some balance between being thrifty or stingy and somebody who gives all his money away. That also requires a balance. There's also a balance between being a taker and being a giver. The minimum is that you give to the extent that you take. The problem is most of us are takers. And when we give, we only give to take. Right? Those of you who are in sales, you give discounts to your customers? Yeah, because you want to take more money from them. That's the only reason you're giving them a discount. It's because you're takers. The goal is, the minimum is to be a taker, equal to the amount that you give. And there's one of the greatest issues of Shalom Bayit that guys have, is because they're willing to give, but in order to take. They're willing to give the wife, but only if they get in return. If they don't get in return, they don't want to give. And therefore, she thinks that she's giving a lot more than she's taking. So she doesn't want to give anymore either. And then you end up with a lot of issues.
Throwing a get at her.
Throw a get, yeah, towards her.
Through the window.
So, because she burnt your meal. So, you have to learn that sometimes you take in order to give. Turn your taking into giving. For example, you come home and you had a good meal at work, but you come home and your mom made you your favorite, whatever it is. What? We're not doing Jeopardy Bukharian meals for 100 people. What is ashpolo? You miss it. Okay. So, thank you. He's homesick. Fine. Care packages, care of Rabbi Matalon at Ohr Somayach. So you come home, you ate already. But your mother made you this meal. So what are you going to do? You're going to take the meal. By taking the meal, you're giving her happiness that you are making her, even though you can't eat anymore. You're like, I don't. But you eat and like, Mom, this is delicious. I love this. Thank you so much. And if your mother is Moroccan, b'chlal, right? I don't need to say anything. You guys know. And they don't want to hear the stories. Now, marrying a Moroccan woman, she will give you her life. Yes, but she'll take yours. Just ask your father. Back to the Kuzari, gentlemen. It's not comedy hour, but there is a 2 drinks minimum here. Just don't forget to tip your waiters. So, fasting would not be the right mahalach for an individual who is weak, whose body requires strength. And so, the Torah balances all of this out so that each person can grow and develop and become perfect to the extent that he can, and thereby become closer and closer to the Kadosh Baruch. So he says the general rule is that we have 3 principles of serving God according to the Torah. 3 principles. The first principle is fear of God. Second principle is love of God. And the third principle is called simcha. Simcha means happiness. And we're going to now talk about each of these aspects. So that we use all of these 3 categories in order to come closer to Hashem. So for example, when we are going to fast, because there's a fast, like Yom Kippur, or what we used to have, Tisha B'Av, right? Be'ezrat Hashem, we will never have Tisha B'Av again, because we'll have the Beis HaMikdash, or Yud Zayin B'Tammuz, it will never happen again. So if we did not, if we had, what? Oh, that's the issue. Tachnun. This guy should be doing Tachnun every day for the rest of his life.
Probably.
Tachnun. People always get that it takes a minute and a half. Tachnun.
It switches up on you.
It switches. Oh my God. Oh.
It's such a high of like dumbing, and it's like, oh.
Well, do you say Tachnun in English?
Like when I say it, I like.
Well, this is worse. It's getting worse and worse. I don't know that if I should keep asking him questions. But the point is, I think that if you read it in English and try to look up the psalm that you're saying as part of the Tachnun and learn it inside, I think it'll have more meaning for you. It's true that when you say things as rote without thinking, just saying it like a parrot, yeah, it's annoying. Like, why do I need to say it? But if you actually pay attention to the words and the impact, then I think you'll have a different, more meaningful experience.
Will we have to say it when Mashiach comes?
Will you have to say? I don't know. Why not?
No, we do korbanos instead of praying out. That's when the Beit HaMikdash is.
Well, wait a second. There are 2 steps that you have to think of. So we will have the Beis HaMikdash and we have korbanot. Fine. But it's totally if you have Yetzer Hara or not. Because if you have Yetzer Hara, then you're going to continue to sin, and therefore you're going to bring korbanot, and therefore you're going to need to confess your sin, which means you're going to do vidui, and vidui is like tachnun. So in that sense, but if you don't have Yetzer Hara, then it's all sorts of different ballgame. And there are opinions that say that we won't have Yetzer Hara. Which means that it's going to be a lot easier to serve Hashem, but the reward is going to be a lot less. Because the Mishnah says, "Lefum tzara aga." The more difficult something is, the more you get rewarded. So just imagine any mitzvah that you took on that was very difficult for example, to wear tzitzis all the time. Let's just say somebody decided, that's it, I'm in. I'm going to wear tzitzis. So you get schar for the level of difficulty it was the first time you wore it. Even though 10 years later, you're not even thinking about it. You're getting schar for that day as if it was your first day. Okay? So you're not losing out. Now says Rabbi Yehuda Levi. So when we have a fast and we have to submit to Hashem, we have to control the body not to eat. But it doesn't mean that we shouldn't have simcha coming closer to Hashem. Just like we have simcha on Shabbos and Yom Tov while eating. The simcha requires machshava and kavana. You have to put thoughts into it and have intentionality. The same thing with tachnun. When you're doing tachnun and when you're begging Hashem to forgive you, it has to come with the same machshava, thought and intention. And therefore, even simcha requires machshava. You have to think about it. How am I going to serve Hashem b'simcha? Especially when, I've been doing this every day. I wake up in the morning, right? Okay. Let's just get some more simcha in it. So, one idea was, why don't we say Shechianu when we wake up in the morning? Because we're new. So we say Moedeani. Shechianu is something about physicality that we got. Or a different, if you look at the Shulchan Aruch, it gives you the categories of Shechianu. But when you say Moedeani, it is the type of, and then we say Elokai, Neshama Shenatata Bi, right? We thank Hashem for. But the idea is that we have to work at being happy serving Hashem. And being happy takes work. If I can give you any piece of advice for those of you who are interested in shidduchim, if you're looking for a mate, a girl, right? Because you're all men. We're not, sorry, but this is a...
What? You can't say that in Canada, Rabbi.
What?
You can't say that in Canada.
What does that mean?
It's Pride Month.
It's what?
It's Gay Pride Month in Canada.
I don't understand what that means. Why does the people make sexuality something they're proud of? So, for example, I'm just saying, if it were true that I was attracted to 20-year-old blonde girls, do I need a month for that? Like to tell people? Wouldn't you say, like, Rabbi, like, cool it down? It's like, this is not what you should be doing. I don't get it. I just don't understand that. But if you're going to look for one quality when you marry a woman, make sure you find somebody who has simcha, that she's happy.
In what way? In serving Hashem?
Happy. That she's a happy person. She wakes up in the morning, she's happy. She's happy. Now, she's not going to be happy all the time, unless she's really severely medicated, right? But you're trying to find somebody who lives their life with a smile that is happy.
Gay. That's how they used to mean it.
What?
Before they changed the meaning of the word gay, it used to just mean happy.
Well, why don't you just use the word happy? You don't have to insert gay. Is that something you want to talk about? Because we're not taking anything back. We just understand the limits of language.
Like watermelon.
Too bad.
Water?
They took the word away.
What?
Watermelon, pro-Palestinian people use watermelon as a symbol because it has all the colors of the flag.
You didn't know that, Rabbi?
Listen.
See, they're taking things away from us. We need to bring them back.
I like I don't want to let them ruin watermelon. I love
Why would they ruin
Soon
it?
we'll be able to say anything.
Because they're
Instead of tomatoes,
using it
we'll move
to
on.
tout anti-Semitic things.
Exactly.
What? Should have gone on the trip there, buddy. Tov. And so, we have to work on having the right thought, to have the right mindset and intention to serve Hashem with joy. And ahava, we were commanded by God to love Him. We were commanded by God to serve Him happily, not drag our feet. Right? You've seen some people going to shul on Shabbos morning. They're like zombies. Shuffling, Where's the simcha? Where's the simcha? Where's the... And so he says, imagine that when Hashem is inviting you, you get invited to a king's feast. You'll go, you'll dress yourself, you'll clean yourself, wear a shower, get ready and go with joy, and you'll have praise. And you'll even dance and sing. That's what you need to use in your service of Hashem. Don't serve Hashem like you're a dry bone that is dead. Every prayer is an opportunity to connect to Hashem. So you have to infuse it with simcha. Because through that mitzvah you are connecting to the Kadosh Baruch Hu. And he says are things that were not, that if we didn't receive it from generation to generation through our Masorah, no human being would be able to set the right measurement for each of these categories. How much yirah we need, how much love, how much simcha. It needs to be in the right amount so that you are balanced. Sometimes you meet people that are imbalanced in terms of too much yirah, not enough joy and simcha in Ahavas Hashem. Some people are Ahavat Hashem, but not really yirah. Some people have lots of simcha, but not for Hashem. They use their simcha for clubs. And so there needs to be a balance, and that balance was transferred from generation to generation through the oral Torah. That's where we learn how this equalizer works.
May I ask you a question?
Sure.
What advice can the Rav give if someone feels like they have low confidence in themselves, and they ask themselves, Hashem's not going to listen after her? They feel very
Well, the first piece of advice is go on a trip. Look, a person needs to understand that prayer operates on two levels. First level is we are commanded, it's a machlokes rishonim, whether it's d'oraisa or d'rabbanan, but we are commanded to pray to Hashem. Even if it has no effect, even if it doesn't work, the rabbis or the Torah tells you to pray, that's what you do. That's it. We don't ask, if we eat matzah, do we really, and we sit in a sukkah. That's what the Torah says, just do it. On that level, that's what we do. Okay? Now, Kadosh Baruch Hu runs the universe according to two hanhagas, two methods. One method is called chesed, and one method is called din, or justice. Right? And there is a middle ground that is a combination between the din and chesed, which is called racham. Your prayers enter within this system, and there's no guarantee anywhere that God has to give you what you pray for. It's a little bit arrogant of us to think that when we ask Hashem for $50 billion, which is what I asked for. Why is that funny? I have bills. What? I tell you, I got to this number in a certain. It's not accidental. Because I heard that somebody got $37 billion. And I said, Kadosh Baruch Hu, come on, I teach Torah. What's she going to do with $37 billion? Give it to me. But then I said, wait, why are you just giving to me what she has? You need to give me more than what she has. So, and you round up numbers. So 50. And then I saw Elon Musk got 57 billion, right? That was his. Said, hey, wait a minute. Wait a minute. What about me? But I'm being modest, so 50 billion. But I'm required to pray to Hashem. But he doesn't have to do what I say. I'm not as arrogant to think that when I ask Hashem for this, I better get it. I ask for shidduch, you better send her down here immediately. That's not it. The process of prayer has an external side, which is you're directing it outward, but it also has an internal aspect. It's a self-reflecting mirror. Well, self-reflecting, it means mirror, right? Should have caught myself with that. What does that mean? That when you are praying according to what Chazal wrote, you are adjusting your wants to what Chazal tell you. These are the things that you should want. Sometimes we ask for things that really we shouldn't be asking. There was a guy here a few years ago, from Montreal, by the way, and he was sitting right there, and he says, Rabbi, you have to help me understand something. So I said, okay. He says, I had a non-Jewish girlfriend, and we broke up, and I asked Hashem to give me a Jewish girlfriend. And it's dry season! No Jewish girlfriend! I said, first, Baruch Hashem, that Hashem is not sending you a Jewish girlfriend, because what you want to do is asur. So you're praying Hashem to do something you shouldn't be doing. And you want Hashem to listen to you. And then if Hashem gave it to you, then you'd blame Hashem. Well, why did you send her in the first place? So there are some things that we ask for that we shouldn't be asking. And therefore, Chazal said, these are the things, the 19 blessings in the Amidah, those are the things that we should be asking for. A lot of them are national requests for the Jewish people as a whole. Some things are for individual situations. Health, we have an opportunity to ask for specific people. For Parnassah, for the Jewish people, also you can insert yourself. For Yeshua, for the hostages, right? Geulah, for what's happening all over for the Jewish people. So it tells you to focus, it helps you focus on what you really should want. And so in that sense, you are required to pray. You're not required the guarantee to get what you're asking for. And it's not because God doesn't think of you. That's for sure not. God doesn't make mistakes. Even if your mother told you you're a mistake, you're not. God created you on purpose. That He saw that this world was imperfect without you and decided to bring you into His world. So now that makes you, no, that's the wrong attitude. It means that you have a responsibility to make this world a better place. Which means there's a lot more on your shoulders. Because God is saying, I put you in here to make this world better. So the least you can do is not make it worse. But what you really should do is improve it. And you have to make sure that you don't make this world a worse place. And so you have to make sure that you treat your fellow Jews the way that the Torah wants. That you treat non-Jews in a way that you don't create Chilul Hashem, desecrating Hashem's name, because that causes big problems for the Jewish people. It's a responsibility. So, low self-esteem is only because you don't know the worth of your neshama. If you really knew how much power HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave you, you would never. It would cause you some real fears. Because you have to accomplish a lot more than what we're accomplishing. All of us. Okay. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
I heard an idea that in terms of prayer, when you give tzedakah, you almost get I don't know how to phrase it, but it's almost like you can test Hashem type of thing. It's an idea I heard. Is that?
Well, Kadosh Baruch Hu says that specifically on tzedakah, that if you give meiser, you'll become wealthy. He says, and you can b'chanuni nabazois. Test me on that. But that's not a question of prayer.
Right.
Prayer is a different mahalach. But again, if your whole purpose of praying is to get whatever you want from Hashem, then you're missing the point. Prayer, tefillah, is to be able to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to have a strong connection, that you feel that you're close to Him, that He's listening to you and you're praying to Him. And it's not only about asking. That is, there are some people who look at prayer as essentially going to Target. Like they got a shopping list in Hashem, I want a car, I want a job, upgrade the girlfriend to 3.0, get my mother off my back, right? Get me to Yerushalayim for a while, you know. That's how people come to pray. They have a whole list of things they want. I'm not so sure that's the only way to look at prayer. It is an opportunity to connect to Hashem. Yes, sir.
When you talk and say that prayer is mandatory, do you mean specific parts of our tefillah, or just in whatever prayer we seem like personal words? I guess like is it?
You have a lawyer. Is he your lawyer?
You finish my sentence.
Or is your Rashi? Okay.
My question is basically.
I got it. I got it. I'm not as slow as I look.
I know that.
You hear that? He says, I know that. I know that you're not as slow as you look. Thanks a lot.
You couldn't have won that one.
Yes. Right. He could have said, Rabbi, you don't look slow. So, like this. The Rambam says the mitzvah d'oraisa is to pray once a day and do three things. Praise Hashem, thank Hashem, and ask Him for something. And that's it. And that doesn't require anything outside of those three things. But the Rabbanon, the rabbi said, this is how you fulfill this. That we do it through Shmona Esrei, right? The Amidah prayer, once in the morning, once in Mincha, and once in the evening. Okay, that's what. The Ramban says all of tefillah is the Rabbanon, and therefore we have to follow what the rabbis have told us, which means that we have to pray 3 times a day in the formulation that they put together.
So
Shema is not a prayer. Shema is a separate mitzvah. It's connected to tefillah, but it's a separate mitzvah. You have a mitzvah to say Shema twice a day. And the way that we have it now, if you follow the Siddur, you say it 4 times a day. 4?
I thought it was 3.
Really?
I thought it was 3.
How? You have one, like, you want to start at night. You have Arvit, yes. Then you have Kriyat Shema al Hamitah before you go to bed, that's 2. Then when you start, you have Kriyat Shema during the Korbanot section, you have Kriyat Shema, and then you have the real Kriyat Shema with Brachot. I counted 4, my friend. And I didn't take my socks off. Yes, sir.
I guess from more holistically, are we supposed to feel? Not supposed to, but when we're praying, when we're davening Shachrit, for example, are we supposed to feel it in this order of praise, ask?
It's not feeling. It's not a feeling. It's the stages of your prayer. So, for example, when the prayer starts, right, Shachris or Mincha, or even Ma'ariv to an extent, it has a little bit of psukim, verses of praise. Ashrei Yoshvei Beisecha, right? We praise Hashem. Then, when we start the davening, right, the first three brachot is praising Hashem. We're not asking anything yet. And then after the first 3, then we start asking things. right? So what you need to make sure is you thank Hashem for something. So in every bracha or towards the end, you say, Hashem, thank you for, I don't know, for hair, for my health, for my eyesight, for the zchus to become to Ohr Somayach and learn Torah, for my parents, for whatever it is that you feel that you want to thank Hashem for. The goal of thanking Hashem is that you're not taking anything for granted. And the key to happiness is don't be an ingrate. People who take for granted, they think they deserve things, are unhappy people. Because nobody gets everything they want. Nobody. So if you are grateful, you will be happy. And be grateful for anything that you get. Yes, sir.
So how can we always end prayer with Aleinu?
Why? That's a special takana. Because that is our marching orders. If you look at the translation of Aleinu, you will see that that tells us what we are, our goal in life. So once we finish prayer, we say, okay, this is the goal. We have to praise Hashem. We have to know that we believe in Him and that we create the world, the Tikkun Olam, the Malchut Shaddai, right? All of the things that are in the Aleinu Leshabeach. Okay, you have mincha for those of you who are interested, and we will continue tomorrow. Yes?
Thank you, Rabbi.
Why do we say Shabbat the mitzvah is to say only 2 times a day?
Good question. The mitzvah is twice a day. Kriyat Shema Lamita is just considered for Shmirah. We say the psukim. But also it could be that you missed. And it was to make sure that you don't, so you say it again. The same thing in the morning.